Okay, the title of this video is The Only Way to Learn the Tarot, with a little bit about what pages mean. And it might seem a bit arrogant to call a video that, but I think I can make a good case to support my position. So let me begin with a little visual aid, as I say in the teaching profession. And so what I have is a little bowl made by my son. He makes glass. So if I put 2 cups of water into this bowl and turn it out, the water is going to pour out very quickly, right? Whereas if I put 2 cups of water inside this container and turn it upside down, the water isn't going to pour out the same way or as easily, because it's got to go through the neck, right? The neck of the bottle. So if I say to you, there's a bottleneck on the highway, we both know that I don't mean that there's a bit of broken glass, but we have the idea, or you have the idea, that there are maybe 3 lanes, and these 3 lanes are having to narrow into 1 or 2. Maybe there's construction, maybe there's an accident. So there's something about using one thing you're familiar with, or one part of life, to describe and explain another part of life, and you have immediate understanding of the second thing. And I think this is good, and I think this is what we should aim for when it comes to reading tarot cards: immediate understanding on the part of the questioner. And because this video is about the tarot, I want to talk about the difference between knowing and understanding. And this is because people who run classes or teach the tarot, they kind of do the easy bit, and this is increasing your knowledge. But from what I've seen, they don't do much, or they don't do as much for your understanding, so that you're a bit like ripples on a pond. Okay, you're sort of spreading out, gathering more and more information, but still staying on the surface. So you're getting knowledge, but you're not getting that much understanding. So the kind of thing that happens is people say, okay, we've got 4 suits in the tarot: cups, coins, batons and swords, and we have 4 elements: fire, earth and water. So you take a suit and you convert it into an element, and so you seem to know more, but you have to wonder how much good it is to know that, let's say, batons represent fire. How useful it is to know that if you're trying to explain to a questioner how to fix a broken relationship. And I don't think it does much, even though it might sound good: fire, earth and water and all the rest of it. Or another example is the 2 pillars behind the High Priestess. If I can show you this, right, pillar. So these 2 pillars apparently represent or correspond with the two pillars in front of the King Solomon's temple in the Bible. And one column in front of Solomon's temple had the letter J, which stands for Yakin, which means strength, and the other one was the letter B, which is Boaz, which means stability. And the J and the B don't stand for John Ballantyne, but that's just my little joke. So anyway, the High Priestess, J and B, the 2 columns, we may know this, but it doesn't really tell us much. It's not that much help. If we want to understand somebody's chances of getting a promotion or meeting a new love interest in their life, how much does it help? Not a lot, I think. The other approach is that tarot teachers generally tell you the same stuff, like pick a daily card. But I would like to say that this exercise doesn't have much practical use if you don't know the question. But people don't talk about what the question is, because the meaning depends. The real meaning depends on what the question is that has been asked. And we really ought to, instead of just picking a card at random, think of a question and then pick a card and see how that card relates to that particular question. But teachers will encourage you to learn some astrology or numerology or the Kabbalah or neuro-linguistic programming, or read mythology or Carl Jung or something, read psychology and become a counsellor. And I'm not saying don't read, but if you try to apply systems to the tarot, you're going to stay on the surface all the time. And that doesn't really get us very far, I think. So in a minute I'm going to cut to me doing a little bit of drawing. But first let me mention court cards, because they give people so much trouble. There's a podcast somewhere where I talk about, I say how many court cards, how many minor trumps are there, how many cup cards are there, and people will usually say 10 plus the king, the queen, the knight and the page. And I want to say to you, instead of thinking there are 10 and 4, think there are 14 cup cards rather than the ace to the 10 and then the 4 court cards. So if you look at it as the ace through to the 10, then the knight becomes 11, the page becomes 12, the king becomes 13 and the queen becomes 14. And we have major trumps that go with these numbers, 11, 12, 13, 14. So if we understand the hanged man, for instance, we also understand the page and vice versa. And the good thing about this approach is we're using, in the same way that we understand bottlenecks, we're using the tarot to explain the tarot. And when we do this, it adds to our understanding, so we can do something more with any particular card to answer the question that has been asked. Okay, so here I am drawing, and I've got 2 pens here. So if you throw a stone into a smooth pond, right? I'm using 2. So what you have is the ripples move out, and I'm using 2 to give us the idea that there's motion outward as well, right? So the ripples are on the surface, but the stone itself goes down and sinks to the bottom of the pool, right? So what is this? We have a T shape here, and what does this remind you of? It's of the letter T, but also the hanged man. Because look, there's the horizontal bit at the top, and there's the vertical bit, right? So the hanged man can remain on the surface, or and sort of gather information, but really he should be going deep, because the human in the picture itself is hanging upside down, and he's there. And it looks like the deeper he goes, the more illuminated he becomes, the better. It's like he knows more, he understands more, whatever. Even though he's suspended, his head is illuminated, and it's a bit like, this is about mental. It's mental understanding rather than physical understanding. So you need the clear picture first in your mind before you do something. Right, rather than practice like building something and then you take it apart and put it back together again, which is more physical. Here we're looking at mental clarity. So it's a bit like the deeper he goes, he's supposed to go deep, right? So it's a bit like what he's doing. He's not brainstorming, which would be on the surface and the ripples and gathering more and more information. At this point, what he's doing is he's examining, let's say, individual ideas, so he can understand their value or their use. So he needs to focus and he needs to concentrate because of the shape and because of the idea we've got here. And because the page relates to the number 12, the page has to do the same. The page is about mental illumination and about focus and concentration and analysing to find value rather than just accumulating more information. So I quite like that little example there, that when you understand something about the page, it relates to the hanged man and vice versa. And I like it because we're staying with the tarot itself. We're not bringing in some system like the Kabbalah or astrology with its own rules and dynamics and making the tarot fit. And when it doesn't fit, pretending that it does. And I say this because there are 12 signs of the zodiac, but there are 16 court cards. Yet people insist that the court cards are the signs of the zodiac. But there are 12 and 16, so we're going to have to drop pages or nights, and which one we can argue back and forth. But in the end, we've got 16 court cards on the 12 signs of the zodiac. So instead of trying to relate them, why not try and relate them and come up with 4 lots of 4, for instance. So if you like what I'm saying here and the approach that I'm taking, there's more in the home study tarot course. This is it here. Two DVDs. You'll find details at www.thetarot.ca, and there's an add to cart button there if you want to buy it. But this video isn't just an advert for the course, because I wanted to tell you about a new site. I've registered it. There isn't anything. Today's the 20th, I think, of April 2011. There isn't much there there's nothing there at the moment, but there will be soon. And the contents will be different. And when you go there, you'll be able to watch videos or listen to audio and read. And the tagline is, so you can go from novice to ninja tarot reader. So the novice to ninja expression isn't original, but the material at the contents at the site will be. So I'm showing you how to go from a beginner stage. So you may have been reading the tarot for a couple of years, but you can still be a beginner. To go from beginner to expert. And it takes you more than 10 minutes. So if you've been considering taking a class or signing up for a course or buying some books, maybe you could consider the Tarot Home Study course. There's a lot in it, and it'll work well with the new material that will be posted on the new site. So that's it for the moment. Have a good day, afternoon, evening. Thank you very much.